So what we got, once you ground off all the rubber and the whatever trims and what have you that are along here, what I did find was this has had a pretty good repair before. This sander here is savage. This is what you get on a vehicle. It grinds it down, it takes all the stuff off, takes all the crud and the metal and the bullshit off. Would it be okay if I was just going to throw some Rockerguard or some liner on there? Absolutely it would. I'm interested in cleaning up a little bit more, so I'll go with this air sander. I don't know if I'd even risk to call it a DA sander. It's nicer. It cleans it up like that versus like that. With that being said, those two here and that can be replaced with this. I did most of my stuff with, you know, just a reasonable $50 skill sander here in Canada. Some 80 grit, some 60 grit, get some different bindles of some stuff. I've always went with that. I'll still go back to that. I know it works. I took the dust collector off the back, let it blow into the environment. I'm not inside. I don't have to dust anything out. It's more than capable. I just have a few of the tools that I do like to use to clean it up a little bit. That is my go-to. That can be anyone's go-to. That and a bit of hand rub sandpaper for going around the wheel wells here is more than adequate. So if anyone's thinking I gotta have all these tools, you don't. That requires a bigger compressor. Even though I have a 9 CFM compressor, this will run the shit out of it. And this one was supposed to be a 4.5 or a 5. Got it on Amazon. It was 50 bucks. But that, you know, you get a 15 amp draw, not even 15. You get a 15 amp plug, and you're probably running 5 amps. I've stalled it out. It's seized up on me. I banged it off the ground a couple times, and it's worked and run very well. It still keeps going. It's ran past my DeWalt orbital sanders. I've had a Bosch orbital sander, and this bad boy, it's heavy. It's got a little light, so you're green when you put too much pressure, it'll show red and stuff. But it's a madman. It keeps going. And this is driveway architecture, if you will, driveway painting. It'll get us where we need to go. It'll look really well. I've never not had a compliment on my finished product as far as what it is. Pure savage butchery, and we're okay with that. Stick with us. We're going to sand some stuff, and then you'll see kind of the finished result of the sanding for the sides. So when I go to spray this, that's it. That's all. I'm going to put the phone on the stand here if it works well, and then I'll show you some sanding and how this turns from you know, road rash to something reasonable. Doesn't look as bad as what it is. Give me 1 sec. So I'll move that back a little bit, and you can see that a little bit. I do apologize, the wind is blowing. I'm sure it's going to be terrible, but let's give her a try. Remember, mask up. as I quite often do, I'll go to the old standby, which is this monster. I love it. So as you can see, there is no replacement for that monster. As far as I'm concerned, the electrical is far superior. Will the air sander give a better finish overall? Absolutely. But we're not looking for that. We're going to throw a rough gator guard, Rhino liner, gravel guard on the bottom of that. And who's going to give a shit? You could have, you could do 3/4 stone across the bottom of that and never know it was there. This I could literally fill in if I needed to without even covering or doing any body work to. That's kind of the whole point, fixing these old girls up and moving on. So this is a work vehicle. I need to be clean and rust free and no holes respectively, and that's what I want and that's what I'm going to get. So this is the finish. Obviously this has had some body work before, unbeknown to me, but she's an old girl and it is what it is. So that's actually a little bit too clean, I think, but when I go to spray that, that'll work out well. Okay, so where these really shine and these don't do so well because they're so heavy-handed, I mean these are for wood and what have you, is on the soft parts. Being a fiberglass, you just want to clean that up enough to give it a bite. Okay, so where these air sanders really shine is on these soft parts, these fiberglass parts, where we really don't need to get too aggressive on it. We just want to rough up the surface, smooth it out so we can actually have something grip onto it. So we need a set of fingers, almost like a Velcro, to draw on the paints and what have you. I wouldn't get into here with it. We're not going to win because we're not going to actually Rhino liner up into there, or liner, or whatever you want to call it. So we just want to be gentle with it. We don't really want to burn through it. So I'll show you what's going on with it, and that's one of the reasons why I have one of these. It's gentle, it's nice. Problem is you need a compressor, you need all sorts of things. You need air lines versus the old electric sander. The electric sander does do what it needs to do, and I have used it in the past, and I've used it with great results. So don't think you need an air sander to do this kind of stuff, because you don't. See, when I'm getting into here, I will then rock that up a little bit and just feed it in there. Big problem is you have this out and that's skinny, you'll get close and you'll nick that. We don't want to, so you really got to edge up and find out where your maximum allowable disc will let you go to. So that's what you get with that. That's what you get when you're a little bit too long, a little bit too high rocking. You burn through it like that. They're okay, but then you we're on a radius here as well, right? So we don't really want any flat spots. I'm not that concerned. If I was going to paint that, then I would get a little excited about it. It's probably on the maximum, what I would like to see. Then I'd have to run it on the flat and blow that out a little bit, right? But to spray this with a Rockerguard or what have you, that's plenty good enough. And this little line in here, I'll just use a little scratchy, or I probably won't even use sandpaper, like a gray or a green wool based product to get in there. And I'm going to run my line of my tape around in there anyway, so I'm going to spray that. I'll probably leave that tape up, believe it or not, an eighth all the way around, but it gives me a good base to have a look at that, and then I could fill that gap in. I don't any imperfection, but it gives me a wonderful spot to really run my tape on. Blow this off, and then we're good with that. So here's another tip. You're going to want to move this glue, which is a 3M tape, I would think, because 3M makes almost anything that sticks to anything. You can use a sander to sand that off, but the problem is with the sander, when you sand that off, it's going to heat that up. That's now going to move, it's going to turn into a paste, it's going to get terrible, and you're going to be forever sanding it. I prefer to take a knife. The knife will bite into the paint, but if you use a knife, find a good sharp edge, you're able to zip the bulk of that off, and then you just got to play with that, and it's reasonable to do, versus this will turn into a horrible paste. You find a knife, find a spot, run the blade really long, and there you go.
I do have what they call goo gone as well in the shop, which I'll probably maybe even use depending on how horrible this stuff is to get off. And the old school ones, I want to say 96, 95s for sure. All these trims are held on with a pin. So you end up having to cut them off and then you grind them a little bit, so you end up with a circle there anyways. So you should end up with something that comes off like that. This is stretchy. It's gooey. It's a two-way tape with a rubber in the middle of it. But that's how I do that. There's many ways of doing it, but that's how I do it. So what has happened here off the camera was I tried to wipe it with an acetone. I got toluene, I got xylene, whatever that is. I don't like it. My goo gone or whatever it is took a giant shit as well. So what we're going to use is some 40 grit. I'm going to sand that. It's probably going to end up looking like that. But I'll show you just kind of the worst case scenario here. So as you can see, what happens is the glue strip ends up heating up. You can't get it all off, and even though I took the knife down it, we're going to end up having to sand it. It's going to end up coming flaring like that until it even clogs up the sandpaper as well, right? Not everyone has access to all the tools and all the things. There's a body shop, you know, there's lots of body shop guys. Oh, you should use this, this, or for this. We're in the middle of a driveway, could be in the middle of a field, could be in the middle of wherever. You have a sander, so we're going to sand our way through this. Watch as I go. See, for what that is and the time it took, I'm not horrified with that. If I was going to not shoot the heavy liner on the outside of that, that would not be the way to go. You'd want to use a cleaner, get your solvent, and then just use that DA sander to clean that up. But this is not what's happening on this truck. So for what that is, it is broken down. I'll take the other sander, we'll go across, we'll blend all that in. But we're still using the trusted skill that you can get at any hardware store, or it can be a DeWalt or a Bosch or whatever the hell it is your big box store has. These work wonderful. Don't discount these for doing your stuff. I love them, and I think they're great.
So what I'm going to do is give you a bird's eye view as to how it sands and what happens to the sandpaper. It takes a while. What this does is starts to roll up like little balls. We call it pilling up, and then we'll stick to the sandpaper, thus making it almost useless. So you end up trying to sand and you end up doing these things, which is then is just impregnating the paint at the bottom again, and then you got to sand it back out again. So this is not really the best way of going, but driveway painting and driveway fixes, this is essentially the way to go. So it's gonna be noisy for a sec, but just watch. So what have we got? We sanded off the sticky trim with the 3M glue, which will hold the world together as far as I'm concerned. You can actually see the lines here where they were. Those aren't rough lines, you can't feel them. And with that being said, the best gauge in the world is your hand. You can feel the highs and lows. Even when I paint a house or I'm doing anything, even woodworking, my hand is the gauge.